Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Currently, Aizen was on the 29th floor of an office building, using the flamethrower to slaughter the zombies charging at him. Though he still bore some injuries, they weren't as severe as last night. His demeanor had changed, his eyes now colder and more resolute. Wait, where did that flamethrower come from? Shenmeng quickly scrolled through the historical records and soon found that during the 14th floor, Aizen had grabbed a fire hose from the 7th floor and cleared the zombies in the fire escape. Instead of heading upward as he had done before, Aizen went downward. He methodically cleared the 6th and 1st floors, finding the flamethrower and motorcycle helmet before continuing his ascent up the fire escape. On the 12th floor, he obtained the armor and a healing spray. When the screen switched back, Aizen had already reached the 31st street floor rooftop. After removing all his weapons and equipment, he let out a few fierce roars of triumph before walking to the edge of the rooftop where a zipline was set up. He tightly gripped the short pole on the zipline, kicked off with his feet, and swiftly swung toward the rooftop of a shorter building. Then, the screen began to zoom out. Aizen's figure on the zipline between the 2 tall buildings gradually shrank, and the perspective shifted from third person to a bird's eye view. The city was teeming with zombies, even scaling the sides of countless skyscrapers like ivy. As the view zoomed out to the clouds, the zombies in the city appeared as mere black dots. Finally, the screen exploded with 4 large characters. Mission accomplished. Not easy. Shenmeng sighed with emotion as he watched Aizen, who was now in the white space, overwhelmed with joy. Clearing it once would make subsequent attempts much easier, and this biohazard map was more impressive than he had imagined. It tested many things, like timing, choices in desperate situations, the awareness to descend, and life and death melee combat. And so on. Even someone who had never killed a chicken would undergo a dramatic transformation in demeanor after clearing this map once, developing a certain fierceness. Shenmeng frowned slightly, pondering a question. By browsing the historical records, he could see many strategies for clearing the map. So far, Aizen was the only one on the train who knew these strategies. He was considering whether to compile and share these strategies with others. Doing so would boost the overall combat strength of the guard team by about 10%. But it would be unfair to Aizen, as it would mean giving away the strategies he had painstakingly discovered through countless deaths, for others to easily learn. Moreover, the map was designed to significantly cultivate one's abilities. If all the strategies were handed out, it would diminish the opportunity for growth. At that moment, Zhao suddenly spoke up. Train conductor, the black market merchant has returned. I've organized the footage he collected. Would you like to view it now? Go ahead. Soon. The screen displayed the footage the black market merchant had collected last night. There was a lot of footage. For example, in a derelict mechanical city, it was overrun by zombies. These zombies even seemed to possess intelligence, as they were actively repairing the city, with zombie guards and zombie soldiers manning heavy artillery on the city walls. In a freezing canyon, a battered robot crouched on the ground, welding a completely wrecked train. A train stopped and traded with the black market merchant. This train had over 40 carriages, resembling a mechanical dragon traversing the wasteland. Its train conductor was a burly man with a scarred face and a menacing expression, who had stared thoughtfully at the black market merchant's chest camera for a long time. Who knows what wild conspiracy theories were running through his mind. Perhaps he thought the black market merchant was some high-dimensional civilization spy or something equally absurd. There was also a deserted forest where the black market merchant had been swinging on a tree branch in the night before being startled by a sudden snake and teleporting away. And a gathering of roughly thousands of humans on a sea-surrounded island, where they had built numerous wooden huts and tents. Occasionally, trains could be seen emerging from the sea around the island. And so on. Shenmeng exhaled slowly, lit a cigarette, leaned back in his chair, and closed his eyes. His understanding of this world had deepened with these images. The world was more complex than he had imagined. Or rather, more diverse. For instance, the mechanical city was designed to help human civilization better control trains for survival. If there was a mechanical civilization, it would likely be friendly toward humans. But the mechanical zombie king was clearly creating even more terrifying monsters. Perhaps these monsters were meant to fight other monsters? Using poison to counter poison, magic to fight magic. But one thing was undeniable. The black market merchant was truly free, going wherever he pleased. Without him, it would have taken Chen Ming much longer to see these scenes. After a while, he spoke. Call them over. Soon. Doba and the black market merchant arrived in the train's interior. Well done. Chen Ming looked at the black market merchant with a serious expression. Go rest for now. Keep doing this. I want more of this information. Do you have a name? I forgot. The black market merchant shook his head, a hint of confusion in his eyes. I had one, but I can't remember. Alright, I'll give you a name. From now on, you'll be called Mundo. Okay. Go on. A new day had begun. All train residents had started their daily tasks. Everyone was contributing in their respective roles, including the teachers. 3 women, who had been teachers before the apocalypse, were now responsible for teaching the children theoretical knowledge. Once they grew older, they would begin practical training. Currently, everyone on the train was in a role that suited them best. And today, something significant happened for the train residents. The first refrigerator had found its spire. The price of a refrigerator was a staggering 1,000 stellar coupons. Currently, no one on the train had that many stellar coupons except for one person. Doba. All train residents had gathered near Carriage 11 to watch the commotion. Lord Ming had created a space gate in Carriage 11. Inside, the space was vast, with clouds and a sun in the sky, and an endless expanse of grassland on the ground. Trees surrounded the perimeter, making it look like a utopia. On the grassland sat an open refrigerator. Inside the refrigerator, Doba and over 100 goblins were decorating the space with various household items they had purchased. Doba had made himself a small stool to serve as his throne. He had also bought many rugs to cover the entire floor of the refrigerator, allowing the goblins to sleep on the ground at night. Since goblins were short, the space was more than enough. It was roomier than being in the train. Most importantly, this territory belonged to the goblins, giving them a stronger sense of home. Doba stood resolutely at the refrigerator's entrance, gazing out at the vast grassland. He planned to buy 2 more refrigerators, ensuring his people could sleep even more comfortably. Meanwhile, in guard carriage 7, the Owzie looked at his physical stats. 12.4. And grinned with satisfaction. Finally. After an entire night, he had finally cleared the map. Currently, he was the only one on the train to have succeeded. This morning, his team was on duty. He planned to share the clearing strategies with everyone after his shift. Initially, he had considered sharing them only with his team. But then he thought, strengthening the other teams would strengthen the stellar train. Holding back might earn Lord Mang's disapproval, so he decided to share with everyone, earning some goodwill. In the future, the other 2 team leaders might remember him when they had something good to offer. You give to receive. Chapter 157, The Doomsday Wedding. Time moved to the evening of the following day. On this night, all residents were busy, though not with mining, but with preparing tables, chairs, and the like. Tomorrow at noon, Lord Mang would host a wedding for Shan Maozi and his girlfriend Mai Jia. Everyone was excited. Though they weren't the main characters of the wedding and didn't know the couple, the juxtaposition of Doomsday and wedding was inherently jarring. Doomsday represented despair, symbolizing the fall of life. While a wedding represented hope, symbolizing the birth of life. A Doomsday wedding. For those who had struggled to survive in the Doomsday for over a year, they were eagerly anticipating this wedding. It would allow them to momentarily forget the apocalypse and immerse themselves in the celebration. Inside the stellar train. Over the past 2 days, they had mined a total of 210,000 units of iron ore. Combined with their existing reserves, they now had 670,000 units of iron ore. Chen Ming had already spent 400,000 units of iron ore to upgrade the stellar train to level 6. Soon. A line of text appeared on the train's control console screen. Your train has been upgraded to level 6. More craftable accessories will be unlocked. Level 6 train. Chen Ming silently gazed at the screen. Months ago, when he first crossed over, he had obtained his first train. After months of development, the train had finally reached level 6. Every time the train leveled up, it gained a special function. He wasn't sure if this happened at every level or just the early ones. The function unlocked at level 5 was mecha crafting, which enhanced the combat capabilities of the train crew. After reaching level 6, a new button appeared on the control console. Question mark. However, this button was just a question mark, with no other information provided. He wasn't in a hurry. He would ask her Dan about this situation tomorrow during the wedding. Train radio channels rarely had level 6 trains speaking up, and no one had discussed this scenario. The number of level 6 trains was already small. Now, the big event was tomorrow's wedding for Shan Maozi and Maijia. This would earn him another 500 inheritance points, adding to the 100 he hadn't spent yet, totaling 600 inheritance points. This should allow him to buy quite a few good things from the black market merchant. Actually, he had been somewhat tempted by the white tier accessory blueprint that cost only 10 inheritance points. White tier items might not be very useful for other trains, but in his hands, they could be maximized. With just a small amount of iron ore, he could gain many supermodel effects. Even life-related accessories could have miraculous effects in certain situations, like a level 10 refrigerator. But he was afraid that if he spent a little now, he might miss out on something valuable worth 600 inheritance points later, so he had been saving up. After the wedding tomorrow, he could start spending. Chen Meng looked at the conditions for a golden wedding. Golden wedding requires a wedding to be held in the presence of 1,000 witnesses, with 3 trains of the same level attending the banquet. Food and drinks must be prepared for all attendees, along with basic items such as wedding dresses, red carpets, artificial flowers, and fireworks. Successfully hosting a golden wedding will grant the train 500 inheritance points and 20 reputation points. The population requirement was met, and Dan had arranged for the 3 trains of the same level. He had the food and drinks, with the alcohol being a gift from Dan. He had used a mechanical heart to create artificial flowers. These inanimate objects could still be crafted by the mechanical heart, of course. Iron flowers, which looked no different from artificial flowers and were even more three-dimensional. The iron ore consumption was minimal. For the wedding dress and suit, he had spent 1,000 units of wood to create high-precision outfits for the couple. As for fireworks, he had prepared a level 1 missile. Level 1 missiles were cheap and could serve as a deterrent at the start of the banquet. Later, they could be used as fireworks, which would look good. He had prepared everything. Although the 2 trains were friends of Dan, he didn't know them personally. The wedding needed to be held on the plains. If those 2 trains attacked his train residence at the start of the wedding, it wouldn't be a good situation. So, it was necessary to show his fangs from the beginning and intimidate the other side. If they dared to attack him, they should think twice about whether they could leave alive. Lao had already taken care of the wedding arrangements, so there was nothing for him to worry about. He just needed to wake up naturally. The night was already deep. Lao, holding a walkie-talkie, looked out at the wedding venue being constructed outside the train, continuously shouting. "That board is fucking crooked. Hurry up with the trusses. We don't have starry skies, so just lay out some artificial flowers. And those 4 ground burst balls next to the red carpet. Tomorrow, you'll be in charge of watching this spot. The moment the couple walks past, detonate them, got it?" He wasn't very knowledgeable about wedding decorations. But as a second-in-command, he often dealt with venue arrangements, as there was a lot of profit involved. Through exposure, he had picked up some knowledge about wedding decorations, and he could manage well enough, with no major issues. He was also the host for tomorrow. At this moment, Shan Maozi, standing beside him, whispered sheepishly, "Train conductor Zhu, there's really no need to go to such lengths. My status on the train isn't that high, is it? This is Lord Meng's intention." Lao patted Shan Maozi's shoulder and smiled. "Just accept it. Even before the Doomsday, many people didn't have weddings as grand as yours. You 2 are the first couple to marry on the stellar train, so it's a good omen. But since you're getting married, you can't go to the Red House anymore." Upon hearing this, Shan Maozi's face instantly turned anxious, and he hurriedly said, "Train conductor Zhu, you can't just say things like that. I've never been there. If you don't believe me, ask Biauj. He can vouch for me. I've never been there. Maijia, you have to believe me. I really haven't been there." The Red House was a refrigerator in the stellar train's resident car where meat-selling residents gathered to receive clients. A red cloth hung outside the refrigerator, serving as a signboard. Residents jokingly called it the Red House. Blushing, Maijia leaned on Shan Maozi's shoulder, her eyes filled with quiet anticipation for tomorrow's wedding. She pinched Shan Maozi's lower back and whispered, "It's okay if you went. I don't mind." Ouch. Shan Maozi sucked in a sharp breath from the pain, then his voice rose in anxiety. "Train conductor Zhu, where's Biauj? I need him to vouch for me. I really haven't been there." "What do you mean it's okay if I went? I've never been there." Alright. Lao chuckled and patted Shan Maozi's shoulder again, looking helplessly at Maijia. "He really hasn't been there. I was just teasing him. He spends most of his time training. Don't bring this up with him in the future. I just saw he was a bit nervous and wanted to lighten the mood. Your task for tonight is to rest well and be in top form for tomorrow's wedding." There will be other trains coming to the banquet, so make sure to present yourselves well in front of outsiders. Shan Maozi hesitated for a moment before asking softly, what about the bowing to the elders part of the ceremony? Go to the stellar train when the time comes. Okay. After this little episode, the couple seemed less nervous and walked back into the train. Only faint voices carried by the night breeze reached Laju's ears. My Gia, I really haven't been there, honestly. I believe you. You really believe me? Yeah, the first time we met on the stellar train, you were quick. Usually, if it's been a while, it's fast. Damn it, you might as well not believe me. Whatever. I'll buy some nuts tomorrow night. Standing where he was, Laju looked at the couple's retreating figures with emotion. It was so nice. Seeing such a scene in the Doomsday was rare. For these two, the Doomsday had become a paradise. Not only had their ALS been cured, but they also had a wedding arranged for them, and Lord Ming had even assigned them a wedding suite. Well, where else could they have enjoyed such treatment before the Doomsday? The next day, the Azure Dragon train met up with the other two level 6 trains on the Shay Plain, preparing to attend the wedding together. The 3 train conductors stood on the plain, discussing. Remember? Dan looked seriously at the other 2 train conductors. I was the only one originally invited to this wedding. I only agreed to introduce you two because we've gotten along well. Once we're there, speak less and listen more. Just be spectators. And absolutely don't make any suspicious moves. Don't let a gun fall out of your coat while clapping, and then tell me it's reasonable for a train conductor to carry a gun. Got it? Got it. The train conductor of the Only Love One train slapped his chest solemnly. You know me. In my life values, there are only 3 types of people. Aunts, comrades, and seniors. When facing seniors, I'm extremely well behaved. The stellar train is definitely a senior, so I won't provoke him. Then he suddenly laughed sheepishly. If I lick up to him like you do, will he give me some benefits too? That's what I was thinking. The train conductor of the 10 Steps to Kill One train also said excitedly. He has so many supermodel effects, so he must have a lot of Murphy stones, right? Maybe he'll casually toss a Murphy stone to us or something. Dan gave them a sidelong glance. I don't even want to comment on the names of your trains. Hey, I've always wanted to know, do you two fight over who owns one? And Murphy stones? Dream on. You're just going to see the world and get a free meal. Whether you can connect with Qin Ming afterward depends on your skills. But looking at your wretched appearances, it's probably not happening. Like beggars. But. Dan licked his lips and looked at them with emotion. The reason I brought you two to the wedding is that, like me, you're cautious and won't cause trouble. The two looked at each other, both seeing the smile in each other's eyes. I became a level 6 trained conductor thanks to one excellent quality, being cautious enough. Same here. Alright, get on your trains and let's go. The sun hung high in the sky. It was noon. Chen Meng looked at the control console screen. When the 3 trains were still over 10,000 meters away, he detected them. He immediately turned to Zhao and ordered, tell everyone to get ready. The missile and Sakura Blossom rocket launcher can be raised. The mechas should also move around. Get everything moving. Yes. Then he walked to the mirror and looked at his outfit for the day. He had crafted a new set of clothes for himself. The weather was getting cold, and although his previous clothes had good temperature lock, they still let in some wind. The top was an orange sweater, and the bottom was just ordinary pants. A very casual outfit. How did that saying go? Todd? Or Todd? Whatever, I can't remember. It's all a mess. Huh? The train conductor of the Only Love One train twitched his mouth as he looked at the targeting radar, which showed over 1,000 red dots ahead. This guy. He knew this train must have a lot of slaves. After all, it was the top-ranked train on the Shay Plain in all 3 rankings. The Power Value ranking, Supermodel Effect Quantity ranking, and Reputation Points ranking. The stellar train was undoubtedly first in all 3, and the gap with the second place was significant. Especially the gap in the Supermodel Effect Quantity ranking was second place. He now strongly suspected that even if they went to the yellow zone, it would still be first. Even the flesh train couldn't get that many Murphy stones. Where on earth did he get them from? Soon. He saw a train resembling a mechanical dragon parked on the wasteland not far away. Around the train, over 1,000 slaves were busily and excitedly preparing the banquet. Although Dan had told him that the stellar train treated its slaves well. But this was too good. At least he had never seen his own slave smiling while working. Wait. The man suddenly froze, looking at the missile, rocket launcher, heavy machine gun, and doomsday cannon that had emerged from the stellar train, all aimed at his train. Don't mess with me, buddy. I'm here for the wedding, not a funeral. This is making me nervous. But soon. The weapons turned away again, clearly without malicious intent. The man sighed in relief and slowly reduced the train's speed, parking it about 100 meters away from the stellar train. Then he jumped down, bringing his trusted aides and subordinates, and walked toward the young man standing in front of the stellar train with a broad smile. The man held a cane, so he must be Chen Meng. He seemed quite approachable. No airs. He had thought they would have to wait outside for a while. Strange. The train conductor ranked first in all 3 rankings was actually this approachable? Welcome from afar. Chen Meng looked at Dan and the 2 men beside him, smiling. These 2 must be Dan's friends, right? Food and drinks are plentiful today. Why not let the otters from your trains come down and join the fun? Better not. Dan said helplessly. Last time, after just a brief interaction, I felt they were looking at me differently. If they stay longer this time, I think they might affect. It's not about the treatment being bad, but about comparison. Actually, I treat them quite well, but it's nothing compared to you. Chapter 158, was that guy mocking me just now? That's one way to put it. The train conductor of the Love Only One train tilted his head in confusion as he looked at Dan. Weddings are always more lively with more people. How many chances do we even have to hold a wedding in this apocalypse? Can't we just give the slaves a day off and let them come down to relax? True. The train conductor of the Kill 1 in 10 Steps train nodded in agreement. Dan, slaves are people too. They might be under the protection of our trains, but they've also dug up a lot of ore for us. It's good for them to relax together. Shortly after, as the thugs behind the 2 conductors returned to their respective trains, the slaves from both trains were quickly herded down. Their eyes filled with a mix of fear and numbness as they jumped off the train and gazed at the chaotic scene before them. Dan remained expressionless and silent, not planning to explain anything. You'll understand once the wedding is over. Alright. Chen Meng smiled and didn't press the issue further. Instead, he pointed to a table that had already been set up nearby. The wedding won't start for a while. Shall we sit over there first? Of course, the guest follows the host's lead. Dan nodded seriously. He then followed Chen Meng to the neatly arranged table, still unable to resist glancing around at the ongoing wedding preparations. This might very well be the first wedding held since the apocalypse began. The atmosphere was quite nice. Just a small gift, nothing too fancy. The train conductor of the Love Only One train took out a green-grade accessory blueprint from his pocket and placed it on the table, pushing it over somewhat awkwardly. Brother, you must accept this. It's not for you, but for the child. I mean, the newlyweds. And here's mine. The train conductor of the Kill 1 in 10 Steps train hurriedly pulled out a small card and handed it over. Just a little something. Huh? Dan looked at the 2 in confusion. What was going on? They hadn't mentioned anything about bringing gifts on the way here. When did they prepare these on their own? He had completely forgotten about it. But it was too late to go back to the train to fetch something now. That would be too embarrassing. Gritting his teeth slightly, he took off the badge from his clothes and pushed it over. This is my gift, a special item. You must accept it, brother. If you don't, then... Lao. Chen Meng waved his hand, signaling Lao to come over and take the items. Then he smiled at the group. You've all gone to such lengths, making me, Chen Meng, feel a bit embarrassed. Here, have some nuts. Just some snacks, not worth much, but they taste pretty good. On the table were some nuts, chilled beer, and cold dishes like marinated meats. In the apocalypse, this was considered an extremely lavish and luxurious spread. The marinated dishes were actually instant products that had been brought out from Yan Yao's rental apartment when she was rescued. The packaging contained pickled vegetables, vegetarian tripe, broccoli, chicken cartilage, duck intestines, and other marinated items. Once opened, they were drizzled with the accompanying chili oil and ready to eat. It was simple and convenient. Only the 4 train conductors were seated, while the trusted aides and thugs brought by the other 2 conductors stood in a corner, curiously observing the scene. After all, this gathering was meant to be relaxed. In the apocalypse, such a relatively warm atmosphere was hard to come by, and everyone cherished it. No one wanted their subordinates standing behind them, as that would make them look too pretentious. After a few rounds of drinks, the group began to loosen up. The train conductor of the Love Only One train looked at Chen Meng with admiration and seriousness as he raised his glass. Brother, before I met you, I never imagined that a train conductor of your caliber could be so approachable. This toast is for you. By the way, brother, there's something I wanted to ask. Has the balance approached you? Chen Meng picked up a piece of edamame with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth, frowning slightly as a hint of displeasure flashed in his eyes. Are you 3 here to recruit for the balance? Seeing the atmosphere turn awkward, Dan quickly intervened to explain. Definitely not. The balance approached me too, but I ignored them. They've also been approached by the balance, but they're still undecided about whether to join. That's why they're asking you, brother, to see what you chose. They want to copy your answer. I see. Chen Ming shook his head. I didn't join. The principles of the balance are actually quite good. According to their chain, everyone can get what they need, and they can support weaker trains, helping human civilization to carry on. But first, I don't want to be bound by anyone. Second, the resources they offer don't mean much to me and would just waste my time. Third, I don't like the person the balance sent to negotiate with me. That's true. Dan nodded in agreement. I've thought about it carefully. That chain would leave the top supporters in a constant state of loss, with no one able to give back to them. It just doesn't seem very realistic. The train conductors gathered together, chatting idly about their experiences along the way. They talked about the hardships they faced before becoming train conductors, the interesting encounters they had during their fortuitous encounters, and the tragic moments when the apocalypse first descended. They talked about many things. But not a single person asked, Chen Ming, where did you get so many Murphy stones? They knew very well what questions to ask and what not to ask. When you reach their level, you understand that those are life-saving secrets, things you wouldn't even tell your wife. How could they possibly share them with the others? Meanwhile, in the bustling wedding venue, a few thugs from the Love Only One train squatted in a corner, their expressions complex as they stared at the wedding scene. Isn't the difference a bit too big for 260H level trains? One thug squatted on the ground, looking enviously at the two patrolling meshs in the distance. Hey, why doesn't our train have meshs yet? Can 60H level trains even build meshs? I'm not sure. The thug next to him shook his head and whispered, probably requires a lot of resources. Look at the Doomsday cannons. We only have 5 on our train, but they have 10 here. And the paint on their Doomsday cannons looks much more robust. Their cannons are definitely higher level than ours. And those missiles, rocket launchers. It's terrifying. No wonder the slaves on this train are so happy. If I could stay on such a heavily armed train during the apocalypse, I'd be happy too. Who wouldn't be happy if they could survive? Just then, Biaozi walked over with 2 of his team members, smiling as he handed out a few cigarettes before greeting them. Have you eaten yet? The thug who had been squatting on the ground quickly stood up, somewhat awkwardly replying, we're just waiting for the meal to start. Although they were both thugs, and both from 60H level trains, for some reason, he felt inferior to the other side. When the gap in train strength was too large, even people in the same position would feel a bit reserved. That's a nice knife. Biaozi looked at the dagger in the man's arms and chuckled. Looks like it would work well for cutting meat or vegetables. Alright, I'm going to continue my patrol. If you need anything, just come find me. I'll do my best to help. The man looked up at Biaozi's retreating figure, then down at the dagger in his arms. After a while, he turned to his companion and muttered, was that guy mocking me just now? Seems like it. Meanwhile, inside the Stellar Train's carriage. In the classroom, a female teacher glanced at the clock on the wall before smiling at the group of children sitting in front of her. That's all for today. Everyone, get ready to attend the wedding of Shan Maozi and Maijia. Today, we finished the story of how the train conductor successfully upgraded the train to level 2, ensuring everyone's safety. Tomorrow, we'll start the story of how the train conductor, with a level 2 train, instantly killed a level 3 monster boss. The man-eating spider. As soon as she finished speaking, the classroom erupted in chatter. A girl couldn't help but raise her hand and ask, Teacher Caillou, didn't you say today that after the apocalypse, the world became strictly hierarchical, and level 2 attacks can never break level 3 defenses? How did the train conductor do it? Well, the teacher on the podium paused for a moment before teasingly saying, I'll tell you tomorrow. Alright, everyone, get ready. The children chosen to be flower girls, wait for me in the dormitory. I'll take you in later. All the children, though still eager to know what happened next, obediently got up and left the classroom, heading to their dormitories to change into their new clothes for the wedding. They were far from the mischievousness of normal children. The children here. Almost every one of them had witnessed the tragic deaths of their loved ones. Among all the ways to grow up, this was the most uncomfortable, but also the fastest. Teacher Caillou. One child stayed behind, took a deep breath, and said with reddened eyes, didn't you say today that all of us would have 3 paths in the future? Administrative, combat, and specialized? Can I be in combat? I want to kill more monsters to avenge my dad. It's too early to talk about that now. Teacher Caillou looked at the child, who was already as tall as her at just 11 or 12 years old. She gently patted his head and smiled. You're still young. You need to graduate before you can move into the right position. And it's not just combatants who can kill monsters to avenge your father. Everyone on the train contributes. For example, the uncles who mine ore. Every piece of ore they dig turns into bullets that are fired at monsters. That's also a form of revenge. But I haven't contributed anything to the train yet. I feel a bit useless. The woman was silent for a moment before softly saying, "Go to the wedding first. Spend time with them. The train is training you now so that you can give back to the train and the train conductor in the future. Right now, you don't have the ability to contribute to the train conductor. Study hard, and that's how you'll be able to give back. Go on." The woman watched the boy's retreating figure before turning to tidy up the teaching materials on her desk. Over 70 pages. They had been handwritten and compiled by train conductor Zhu, detailing the crisis the train had faced since its inception and the choices Lord Ming had made in dire situations to bring the train back from the brink. The handwriting was neat. She was directly connected to train conductor Zhu and enjoyed first-class resident treatment. Before the apocalypse, she had a husband and her own child. But after the apocalypse, they were gone. Both her husband and child had died. For a long time, she had been in a daze, unsure how she had even survived. After a moment, she shook her head, gathered the teaching materials in her arms, and headed to the dormitory. She lived in the girls' dormitory, and her treatment was much better than before. As a soft love song began to play outside the train, all the train residents had gathered around the tables, sitting on the ground. The tables were filled with nuts, bread, cola, steamed buns, and a large plate of stir-fried vermicelli with minced meat. The vermicelli was left over from the last time they had stew, and the minced meat was scraped out from the bun's meat sauce, stir-fried with the vermicelli in a big pot, adding a touch of home-cooked flavor. Distinguished guests. Lashu, dressed in a white suit, looked unusually formal today. Holding a microphone, his voice echoed through the train's external loudspeaker as he stood on the stage and smiled at the crowd. Today marks a turning point in human civilization, one that will surely be recorded in history. This is not just a wedding. It is also the boundary between civilization and barbarism. Now, let us welcome the newlyweds. A wave of applause erupted like a tidal wave, and some bold train residents even began to cheer loudly. At the foot of the stage, a red carpet stretched across the plain, lined with imitation flowers made from the mechanical heart. The iron flowers looked more layered, and around the stage stood 4 sturdy trusses. The tops of the trusses were also covered with imitation flowers. These trusses were high frames brought back from the mechanical ruins of the ice and snow world, reassembled here. If this wedding had been held in peacetime, it would undoubtedly have been considered. Even the host's speech was too brief and unprofessional. But against the backdrop of the apocalypse, this wedding was undoubtedly the highest. The applause continued like a tidal wave. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the end of the red carpet, where the stellar train's carriage 11 stood. Under Zhai's control, the music grew louder. Finally, Maijia, dressed in a white wedding gown with a veil, her eyes slightly red, walked out of carriage 11, arm in arm with Shan Maozi, who was wearing a suit. They stepped onto the red carpet and slowly made their way toward the stage under everyone's gaze. Behind them, 4 children in formal attire quietly followed the bride, holding the train of her gown. Further back, 4 flower girls carried baskets of flowers, constantly tossing them into the air. Wow! The cheers from the train residents grew even louder. Chapter 159, Sleep, It's Getting Late. Perhaps seeing that Lord Meng and the Guardians hadn't intervened, the train residents, who initially didn't dare to make a fuss, couldn't help but stand up and crane their necks, cheering loudly under the atmosphere's influence. That kid. Outside the crowd, Biaozi, sitting on the shoulder of the leech mecha driven by Li Shiji, looked with emotion at Shan Maozi, who was dressed in a suit on the red carpet. That kid looks much more dignified when he's formal, I must say. Train conductor Zhu is quite dignified too, Li Shiji's voice came through the mecha's loudspeaker. Train conductor Zhu? His belly is almost bursting through that suit, where do you see dignity in that? When Maijia and Shan Maozi walked down the red carpet to the stage. Only then did Lao pause and look at the two of them. As the surrounding cheers gradually quieted down, he glanced at the card in his palm and then at the couple. 2 newlyweds. Maijia and Shan Maozi. If you are fortunate enough to survive until dawn, please sow the seeds of your love after the dawn. If you die tonight, do not resent it, for you will be buried together and a tombstone will be erected, so that hundreds of years later, people will know that humans once used love to fight against the cold of the night. Now, please accept this Doomsday marriage certificate, a symbol of your love. Shan Maozi, also with teary eyes, took the marriage certificate with Maijia. The next moment. Bang, bang. With several sounds, the ground burst orbs placed around the red carpet exploded, and hundreds of colorful balloons floated into the air. Following that, hundreds of rocket launchers were also fired into the air, exploding continuously, releasing dazzling lights like fireworks. Then, the missile on Car 14 roared into the sky without hesitation. It exploded in the air, with countless orange flames gushing out at high altitude. The music reached its climax at this moment. The atmosphere of the entire banquet was pushed to its peak. The marriage certificate in Shan Maozi's hand also turned into white light spots, exploding and dissipating on the spot, leaving only a small heart mark on the back of each of their hands. Then, let the feast begin. As the words fell, all the train residents, with teary eyes and rummy noses, looked at the radiant newlyweds on the stage, clapping and shouting loudly. They didn't know what to say, just suddenly felt like crying. Marriage. Such a long-lost and unfamiliar word. Memories from a year after the apocalypse surged back into everyone's minds. And the most severe emotions were those of the slaves from the other two trains, whose eyes, originally numb and fearful, were now filled with tears. Is the apocalypse over? A slave, who was originally in a daze, withdrew his gaze from the plate of minced meat and vermicelli on the table, craning his neck to look at the newlyweds on the distant stage, muttering in a trance. But at this moment, the slave at the same table, upon hearing the words feast, immediately reached into the plate, grabbed a handful of minced meat and vermicelli, ignoring the heat, and stuffed it into his mouth, wolfing it down. The slave who had just been emotionally moved immediately reacted, his face changing drastically, and without a second thought, he threw the iron chopsticks aside and started grabbing with his hands. Clearly, the apocalypse wasn't over yet. It's really nice. At the table closest to the stage, the train conductor of the only Love one-person train looked at the semi-transparent panel that had popped up in front of him with a complex expression. Shaplane Area Broadcast, congratulations to the Stellar Train for being the first train on the Shaplane to host a wedding for survivors. In the eternal night, only love and courage can await the dawn. Just as he was about to say something, he turned to look at the banquet scene and immediately his face darkened. He saw the slaves from the Stellar Train, sitting around the table, using chopsticks to pick up the vermicelli and eat, while the slaves from their two trains were grabbing with their hands, looking just like bandits. He immediately felt embarrassed, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't have the thugs beat the slaves now, it wasn't appropriate for such a joyous occasion. He just looked at Chen Meng with some awkwardness. Sorry for the embarrassment, brother, these people lack discipline. It's fine. Chen Meng didn't mind, instead, he smiled with satisfaction. This effect was quite good, serving as another political lesson for his train residents. At this moment, Shan Maozi and Mangekyō came over with glasses to toast. Alright. Chen Meng stood up, took the glass of beer handed to him by Mangekyō, drank it in one gulp, and then looked at Shan Maozi with a smile. Did Lao arrange the house and everything for you? Everything's arranged. Shan Maozi, with teary eyes and a trembling voice, said, Lord Meng, Alright, go rest, no need to say more. Yes. Ahem. At the banquet, a man who had just picked up a strand of vermicelli with his chopsticks, about to quickly stuff it into his mouth, suddenly noticed the slaves at the nearby tables, grabbing and wolfing down food with their hands. He coughed lightly, then leisurely picked up the vermicelli and put it into his mouth. Several nearby train residents, noticing this, also subtly made their eating actions look more elegant. Look at them, probably haven't had anything good to eat before. Indeed, look at how thin and pale they are, probably the bread they eat at most isn't moldy, but it doesn't do anything for their physical health. More than that, they probably don't even get enough bread to eat, their train conductor doesn't even let the slaves eat their fill, does he? Pity, indeed. Are those women not your Lord Meng's women? The thug leader from the only Love one-person train, standing next to the Aozi, looked at the table of women dressed quite beautifully, chirping like birds, and asked in disbelief, these women dressed so nicely? They're not your Lord Meng's women, just selling their bodies? Selling their bodies and still so happy? High salary, why wouldn't they be happy? Not many on the train earn more than them. The Aozi rolled his eyes in annoyance. Lord Meng's women are much prettier, didn't you see the two sitting over there? Those two are Lord Meng's women. High salary. The man was stunned, tilting his head to look at the thin and pale women among his train slaves. Every train has a small number of women and men engaged in stress relief work, but the women on their train all looked dazed and numb, lacking the vitality of these women. He hadn't indulged in a long time. They had dead fish eyes, like corpses, just looking at them was a downer. None of them had the vitality of these women, and among them were a few minor celebrities he recognized. As for Lord Meng's two women, Ji Chuku and Yan Yao, how could he not recognize them? They were top-tier stars before the apocalypse. If the man glanced around, gritted his teeth, and whispered, if we defect, would your Lord Meng take us in? Of course not. The Aozi shook his head, couldn't help but grin. Don't think about it, no chance. Do you think just anyone can join the Stellar Train? It's all about fate. And you guys are so quick to defect, Lord Meng wouldn't feel comfortable using you, right? I was just talking. Don't take it seriously. The man looked with envy and jealousy at the women and the stellar train parked there. Women he couldn't have were being enjoyed by slaves on the stellar train? As a thug leader, how could the gap be so big? The banquet soon ended. This Doomsday wedding came to a close. The other two train conductors, reluctant to part, bid farewell to Chen Meng before returning to their trains, taking their slaves and thugs back the way they came. But for some reason, they felt that the looks their slaves and thugs were giving them had started to become strange. Those two poor kids. Dan, standing in place, sighed as he watched the two trains drive away. Hope there won't be any riots. I didn't bring anyone down, not even thugs. Those two fools even brought their slaves down. It's just that you, brother, don't have any ulterior motives. Otherwise, those two might not have made it out alive today. You wouldn't even need to lift a finger, just a promise from you, and the people below them would probably rush up and kill them. What's your plan next? Chen Meng, leaning on his cane, stood in place, looking at the setting sun on the horizon. We'll rest for a day tomorrow, then head to the Yellow Zone, the zombie basin. Want to come with me? Sure. Dan couldn't help but laugh. I was waiting for you to say that. Going with you, brother, suddenly makes the Yellow Zone seem not so scary after all. Alright. Chen Meng waved his hand in annoyance. See if you have anything else to do. If not, we'll rest here tonight and head to the zombie basin tomorrow. No problem. After the wedding. The scene was a mess. The trusses needed to be disassembled and sent back to the Mecha Research and Development Center. The artificial flowers, iron chopsticks, iron tables, and the like needed to be collected and fed into the geothermal furnace to recover some resources. But he didn't need to worry about these things, Lao would arrange for someone to handle it. Chen Meng didn't linger either, heading to the train room to check the gains from the wedding. The sky quickly darkened, and the scene was left without any garbage. All the trash had been stuffed into the geothermal furnace, which was a great tool for cleaning up. All the train residents returned to their cars, but recalling the wedding earlier that day, they felt a lingering sense of incompleteness. In Car 7, the guard car, there was a refrigerator. This refrigerator was the wedding chamber Lao had prepared for Mai Jia and Shan Maozi. In the middle was a large bed made from 3 single beds pushed together. Next to it were simple furniture like a refrigerator, tables, and chairs. Mai Jia. Shan Maozi, with tears in his eyes, picked up Mai Jia and carried her to the bed, placing her on the bed. Propping himself up on the bed, he looked down at Mai Jia in his arms, his eyes burning with excitement, and whispered, "We're finally married, even in the apocalypse." Mai Jia, lying on the bed, feeling the rush of hormones from Shan Maozi flooding her mind, her cheeks flushed, her eyes dodging, struggled slightly and whispered, I'll go take off the wedding dress first." "Don't." Shan Maozi looked at Mai Jia in his arms, pulled out a handful of red heart nuts from his pocket, stuffed them all into his mouth, then grinned ferociously. "This time, let's see if I can do it." 30 minutes later. Mai Jia, with beads of sweat on her nose, lay in Shan Maozi's arms, her fingers gently tracing circles on his chest, and whispered, "Does wearing the wedding dress make it feel better?" That. Go on. Can we buy more red heart nuts in the future?" "What do you mean?" Shan Maozi immediately flipped over, pinning Mai Jia beneath him, and started tickling her armpits, pretending to be angry. "Are you looking down on me?" No. Mai Jia, her scheme successful, giggled as she dodged Shan Maozi's tickling. After some playful fighting, the two finally settled down again. Mai Jia, happily leaning on Shan Maozi's chest, dreamily imagined their future life. "Let's earn more stellar coupons in the future, buy some pots and pans, and I'll cook for you here. Separating the meat sauce and buns to fry them will make them more flavorful, much tastier. If we have a child in the future, we can buy another small bed for the child." Hee hee. Shan Maozi just chuckled without saying a word. Shan Maozi. "When you go out on missions in the future, be extra careful, don't die, okay?" Shan Maozi was silent for a long time before he softly replied. Sleep, it's getting late." In the stellar train's control room, Chen Meng looked at the train panel. The area broadcast from earlier that day had added 20 reputation points, and successfully hosting the wedding had earned him 500 inheritance value and 20 reputation points. He now had a total of 120 reputation points and 600 inheritance value. He hadn't found any use for the reputation points yet, but he already had plans for the 600 inheritance value. He immediately said softly, "Zhao, have Doba and Mundo come over." "Yes." Every time he called Mundo, he had to call Doba too. When Mundo didn't understand something, Doba would step in to translate. While waiting for Mundo, Chen Meng looked at the 3 items on the table. A green-grade blueprint, a card, and a badge. These were the gifts Sir Dan and the other 2 trains had prepared for the banquet. Honestly, he was quite surprised. He really didn't expect them to bring gifts, which made him feel a bit embarrassed. Before they left, he gave each of them a set of high-end custom-made clothes as a return gift. The weather was getting cold. They would come in handy. During this period, the central air conditioning on the train was basically running all day, along with accessories like the oxygen machine, which were also on almost all the time. Chapter 160, Zhao Ai, called Ji Chuck over. What interested him the most was naturally the special item, the badge, special item, hero's badge. Item effect, when worn, this badge will calm your fear in desperate situations, filling you with courage. Chen Meng toyed with the badge in silence for a while. It wasn't as useful as his salted fish hairpin, which allowed him to breathe underwater for 10 minutes. He couldn't think of any situation where he'd need this badge. Desperate situations? He usually kept his cool in desperate times. He decided to keep it for now, perhaps to reward someone in the future. As for the card, it was quite a surprise. Special item, laboratory access card. Item effect, when in the Koronuk Fortuitous Encounter map, this card can be used to open a certain laboratory door within the map. Another special item, though it would be useless for now. He had never heard of a fortuitous encounter map called Koronuk. Still, it was a good item to have. If he ever stumbled upon that map, this card could bring him more opportunities. But the name? Koronuk. Why would anyone throw a nuke into the Earth's core? What's the point of that? Finally, the blueprint given by the train conductor of the only Love One-person train was quite satisfying. Tea production line. Great, another beverage for the train. He immediately spent 11,000 units of iron ore to craft this accessory and obtain 2 supermodel effects. The accessory itself didn't change upon upgrade. Tea production line level 5 supermodel effect, suppresses phlegm. Tea production line level 10 supermodel effect, long-term consumption slightly increases mental strength. Great. Chen Meng couldn't help but smile. This guy really gave him a big gift. This was the first food item in the train that could increase mental strength. Piloting the Leech Mecha required high mental strength, and currently, only Li Shiji in the train could meet the requirement. But Li Shiji was a logistics personnel and didn't have much talent in combat. Future mecha would have to be handed over to someone else. He remembered that the third team captain's mental strength was 13.9, just a step away from the minimum requirement of 14.0 to pilot the Leech. With the T and the map designed by Li Shiji, he could soon reach that requirement. This guy was really generous. He wondered if the guy would still have given him this accessory if he knew its level 10 supermodel effect could increase mental strength. Oh, he probably would. After all, that guy probably didn't have 7 Murphy stones, might not even have the Leech Mecha blueprint, and possibly didn't even have a Crimson Heartstone. He had been in the Shape Lane for so long and hadn't even seen a Crimson Heartstone mine. This kid. Even though he's a level 6 train, he still gives off a pitiful vibe. At that moment, Doba and Mundo arrived outside the train and knocked on the door. Come in. Chen Meng turned his head to Mundo. Open your inheritance value shop again. Let me take another look. Mundo's expression turned serious, and his eyes turned cold. Foolish human, congratulations on encountering the mysterious, elusive, and great black market merchant. You can. Stop. Chen Meng glared at Mundo. Can we skip the monologue? Mundo, who had just realized what was happening, instinctively took a step back, hiding behind Doba, and whispered. Sure. Great human prophet, please forgive him. Doba quickly explained, he's only regained part of his intelligence. The program in his brain is deeply ingrained. Chen Meng waved his hand, not saying much, and turned to the floating inheritance value shop, casually saying. It's fine. From now on, change that great human prophet prefix. Don't you find it awkward? Just call me Lord Mang or train conductor, got it? Got it, Lord Mang. In the inheritance value shop, apart from the previous 4 items, 6 more valuable items had appeared. 1. Random blue-grade accessory blueprint, 400 inheritance points. 2. Can choose from, defense, attack, life, speed, miscellaneous, types, random blue-grade accessory blueprint, 600 inheritance points. 3. Special item class change token, 500 inheritance points. 4. Doomsday marriage certificate, 300 inheritance points. 5. Special item B-level difficulty skip coupon, 500 inheritance points. 6. Special accessory desert oasis, 500 inheritance points. Chen Meng stared at these 6 options in silence for a long time without speaking. Normally, you had to make a choice within 1 minute, or the opportunity would be lost. Of course, this restriction didn't apply to him. even though the panel would disappear after a minute. He could just summon it again. Now he understood why people would buy and sell children. For example, the children Dan brought back from that abandoned train. Those children hadn't been granted train crew status on their original train, meaning the inheritance points didn't go to that train, allowing Dan to pick up this bargain. The original train was planning to sell these children, essentially selling inheritance points directly. The items in this inheritance value shop were all too good. He wanted every one of these 6 items. The special item class change token was something he had never seen before. Normally, when a train levels up from level 3 to level 4, it has to choose to become a flesh train or a mechanical train. But with this item, even if you're a level 6 mechanical train, you can use this item to change into a level 6 flesh train. It gives you a second chance to choose. He didn't need this, but if he sold it, it would definitely fetch a high price. After all, an S-level potential flesh train could use this item to become an S-level potential mechanical train. It's a shortcut. The class change quest for mechanical trains is much harder than for flesh trains. Of course, achieving S-level potential in a flesh train is also very difficult. He also really wanted the Doomsday marriage certificate. If he could find a truly loving couple, it would be a net gain of 200 inheritance points. The downside is that it would take too long to sell. In a Doomsday environment, finding a couple that the Doomsday marriage certificate would recognize isn't easy. Before the apocalypse, in a peaceful environment, business was all about liquidity. Profit margins could be smaller, but it was important to keep goods moving quickly, ideally without even passing through your hands. Especially after the apocalypse. It's better to get stronger quickly. Holding on to goods for too long, who knows what could happen. Special accessory Desert Oasis. An extremely special accessory, with no grade distinction. A train equipped with this accessory is more likely to encounter entities like the black market merchant. How to choose? After a long silence, Chen Meng finally made his decision and turned to Mundo. Give me 60 white grade accessory blueprints. No need for all these fancy options. Just buy him 120 supermodel effects. Even if 100 of them are useless, there are still 20 supermodel effects that can be used. Isn't that more cost-effective than any other accessory? With the infinite upgrade level 0 privilege, white grade blueprints are the better. Upgrading costs are low, and you get 2 supermodel effects right away. Is there anything more cost-effective than this? However, you can only exchange for a maximum of 5 white grade accessory blueprints. Chen Meng sighed lightly and immediately spent 50 inheritance points to exchange for 5 white grade accessory blueprints. After some thought, he spent another 500 inheritance points to exchange for the special accessory Desert Oasis. He still had 50 inheritance points left, which he would save for later. He waved his hand, signaling Doba and the others to leave. Then he looked up at the control panel screen. On the 3-dimensional map of the train, a small, cute dog-tail grass suddenly appeared on top of the train. This was the special accessory he had chosen. No materials were needed to craft it. It couldn't be upgraded. The panel only showed one effect. It will attract more special passengers to you. Fine. Chen Ming took off his clothes and headed to bed to rest. Encountering a few more special passengers like the black market merchant would be great, especially if they were all goblins. Then he could have Doba talk them into staying and becoming residents of the train. Lying in bed, Chen Ming thought about today's wedding scene and remained silent for a while before casually grabbing a red heart nut nearby and popping it into his mouth, softly saying, "Zhao Ai, call Ji-Chuck over. Tell her to stop by the number 4 production line on her way and have a wedding dress custom made for herself. High precision." "Yes. Lord Meng." Ji-Chuck, wearing a wedding dress and veil, knelt obediently by Chen Ming's bedside in the train's interior. Chen Ming glanced at Ji-Chuck, then opened the screen and played the variety show Ji-Chuck had participated in again. After a while, he patted the bed. "Get up here." The night breeze blew through the train. The bed shook. The stars in the sky flickered like groggy workers forced to get up early. Morning came. Phew. Chen Ming stretched lazily, feeling refreshed, and began browsing the train log from last night. Another peaceful night. There were slightly more monsters last night, with a group of zombie wolves attacking. One of the zombie wolves was level 5, but they all died horribly without causing any trouble. Time to prepare to head to the yellow zone, Zombie Basin. He sat at the control panel and looked at the 5 random white grade accessory blueprints he had exchanged from the inheritance shop yesterday. One blueprint particularly satisfied him. Cigarette production line. With this accessory, cigarettes in the train would no longer be a non-renewable resource. The cigarettes in the residence store would never run out again. Many residents were keen on buying cigarettes with stellar coupons. Not because they were addicted, but because lighting a cigarette after work made them feel like workers in a peaceful era, rather than slaves in a doomsday. He spent 22,500 units of iron ore to upgrade all 5 white-grade accessories to level 10, gaining 10 supermodel effects at once. Apart from the cigarette production line, the other 4 white-grade accessories were rice noodle roll production line, handheld game console production line, coffee production line, pork knuckle rice production line. Great. Chen Meng was quite satisfied with these 5 accessories. They were all life modules that improved living standards. They just came a bit late, otherwise, they could have elevated the wedding's atmosphere yesterday. Especially the pork knuckle rice. He had a soft spot for pork knuckle rice. In his previous world, pork knuckle rice had provided him with the motivation to keep going on many late nights. Including the handheld game console production line. Residents could have more entertainment options, and this could also be sold in the store. The supermodel effects for the coffee production line and pork knuckle rice production line were both none. The other accessories had supermodel effects, handheld game console production line level 5 supermodel effect, more game genres. Handheld game console production line level 10 supermodel effect, can be played multiplayer. Rice noodle roll production line level 5 supermodel effect, can choose between egg, meat, or crab fillings. Rice noodle roll production line level 10 supermodel effect, none. Cigarette production line level 5 supermodel effect, can choose between regular tobacco, premium tobacco, or rare tobacco. Cigarette production line level 10 supermodel effect, slight pain relief effect. Chen Meng leaned back in the control panel chair and let out a long breath, stretching lazily before getting up and stretching his limbs. He was quite satisfied with these accessories. Living standards had improved significantly. Finally, no more of that damned GMO. After eating it for over 2 months, he felt a headache just thinking about it. In a while, he'd slaughter a chicken and have a private kitchen meal. He actually wanted to eat fish, but fish was hard to come by, and there were no fish in the breeding carriage. He immediately turned to Zhao Feng, who was holding a plate of hot GMO. Go to carriage 4 and bring me a bowl of rice noodle rolls. Wait, make it 3. 1 with meat, 1 with egg, and 1 with crab. Take all the cigarettes in my car and put them in the resident store. From now on, when you see the cigarettes running out, replenish them from the cigarette production line in carriage 4, using rare tobacco. And make me a cup of tea. All white-grade accessories, so the production costs were cheap, almost negligible. If the train were still at levels 1 or 2, there might have been some pressure, and he wouldn't have spent iron ore to craft these life modules that improved living standards. But for him now, it was like a drop in the bucket. The train's daily fixed expenses were already substantial, such as daily food and necessities for all residents, as well as accessories like the oxygen generator, central air conditioning, and the constantly active targeting radar and resource detection radar. And the tobacco. For regular tobacco, producing 1 pack of cigarettes only required 1 unit of iron ore. At this price, he was ready to become a tobacco king. Chapter 161, Is the profit really that high? Sell some cigarettes before we leave. Chen Meng glanced at the train radio and immediately composed a message in the chat box. Stellar train, selling various daily necessities, including cigarettes, tea, rice noodle rolls, pig trotter rice, coffee, etc. No need for face-to-face transactions. Prices are low, and remote transactions are available. Direct private messages only. Offer ends at noon today. No exceptions. Almost instantly after the message was pinned, 2 people sent private messages. In the past, daily necessities like bread and GMO were similar to what people already had on their trains, so the desire to buy wasn't particularly strong. But the daily necessities he was selling now were things many trains didn't have. People couldn't buy much, but purchasing a little for personal enjoyment was no problem. At the gathering in the Iron Ridge Wasteland, the general market price for a pack of cigarettes was 200 units of iron ore, which meant 1 pack was 20 units of iron ore. Of course, the price would be higher on the Shea Plain. After all, the price of a product, aside from its intrinsic value, largely depends on the local consumption level. In the White Zone, people didn't have much iron ore to begin with, so the price of cigarettes could only go so high. But on the Shea Plain, people had a bit more to spend, so the price could be a little higher. Chen Meng glanced at the train radio. In just this short time, 7 or 8 people had already inquired. Besides the fact that his products were indeed scarce and tempting, the ability to conduct remote transactions was also a significant factor. Few people would go out of their way to drive their train just to buy a pack of cigarettes. But with remote transactions, it was quick and convenient. He didn't bother reading the messages and handed full control of the train radio to Zhao, who transformed into a professional customer service representative. While confirming needs and negotiating prices, Zhao also started managing the production of the 4th production line accessories, arranging for the items to be delivered to the train cabin, and then placing them on the balance for remote transactions. It was quite busy. What a pity. Chen Meng looked regretfully at the well-organized Zhao. If we were in peaceful times, with a helper like you, I could start a customer service outsourcing company and make a fortune. Not just a 3-minute response rate, but a 3-second response rate. In his previous world, he had dabbled in e-commerce for a while. In the early stages, he couldn't afford to hire customer service, so he had to do it himself. The 3-minute response rate nearly drove him to a nervous breakdown. Chen Meng didn't bother with the transactions anymore, leaving it entirely to Zhao. He got off the train. After setting up tables and chairs on the plane, he asked Zhao Feng to bring a few more servings and invited Dan to join him for breakfast. See which flavor you like. Chen Meng smiled, picking up a chopstick full of crab filling and putting it in his mouth. The sour preserved beans and chopped chili mixed with the aroma of the rice noodle rolls instantly tantalized his taste buds. He nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, the flavor is quite good. Give it a try. Isn't his a bit extravagant? Dan excitedly rubbed his hands together and didn't hesitate to pick up his chopsticks, diving into the 3 servings of rice noodle rolls in front of him. Bro, I saw your message pinned at the top of the train radio chat box. Isn't that part of the train radio's supermodel effect? Yep. Chen Meng ate quickly, finishing all 3 servings of rice noodle rolls without wasting a bite. Afterward, he took a satisfied sip of hot tea, pulled out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, shook one out, and smiled. It's quite useful sometimes. You should consider upgrading years later and give it a try. Try this. This is a cigarette made from rare tobacco leaves. What I sell on the train radio is made from common tobacco leaves. Rare tobacco leaves cost 100 units of iron ore per pack. Cigarettes are consumables, and non-essential ones at that. This price was indeed steep. But for him alone, it wasn't a problem. He could afford it. Dan hurriedly put down his chopsticks, lit the cigarette, and gave a thumbs up. Smooth. TSK. Chen Meng chuckled and shook his head, not saying much. He just sat in his chair, looking into the distance where Zhang Diamai was driving her mech, fighting monsters. It was nice to have someone to talk to. Speaking of which, Zhang Diamai had been getting more and more reckless lately. Those few wandering zombies were at least 1,000 meters away from the train, and their path didn't seem like they were heading toward the train at all. Yet Zhang Diamai had rushed over and taken them out. Even if the executioner mech didn't consume much energy, a single level 2 energy stone could sustain full combat for 100 hours. It still shouldn't be wasted like that. This kid doesn't manage the household, so she doesn't know the value of money. By noon, the train radio's notification sounds had long since stopped. Basically, everyone who wanted to buy had already done so. Gross profit, 168,800 units of iron ore. Cost, 4,920 units of iron ore. Zhao's voice echoed in the train cabin. Is the profit really that high? Chen Meng clicked his tongue. The cost to produce a pack of cigarettes was 10 units of iron ore, and he sold them for 400 units of iron ore. To be honest, selling a pack for 400 units, he felt he was being quite fair. It was only a 40-fold profit. After all his hard work to obtain the tobacco production line blueprint, it wasn't wrong to let him make some money, right? Not bad. He smiled, took a sip of hot tea, and didn't waste any more time. He immediately set the train cabin in motion, heading toward the Kunlun Mountains region. The goal: to cross the Kunlun Mountains and head to the Yellow Zone, the zombie basin. The Azure Dragon train followed closely behind, accompanying him to test the waters in the Kunlun Mountains region and see what the Yellow Zone was all about. The zombie basin. Had he not heard that even a level 7 mechanical zombie king had fallen at his hands? Change of plans. In the Kunlun Mountains region, Chen Meng looked up at a large, green, winged moth flapping its wings in the sky and immediately abandoned his plan to head to the zombie basin tonight. The targeting radar showed that this monster was a level 5 boss, the Green Dragon. He quickly switched to the bunny cloud wheels, flying up to close the distance. As long as he killed this Green Dragon, he could obtain the Deep Sea Shield accessory, which would allow him to enter the underwater labyrinth and retrieve the Murphy Stone. Only then could he leave the Shaplane with a sense of completion. He had almost given up on this. After all, the Green Dragon was a rare monster with no fixed territory, making it hard to track. He had already consoled himself with the thought that life couldn't be without regrets. But just before he set out, a miracle happened. The heavens were truly looking out for him. Old man, you've been really good to me. I wish you a long and healthy life. Chen Meng narrowed his eyes, looking at the Green Dragon fleeing on the targeting radar screen, and couldn't help but laugh. It was truly a case of searching far and wide for something, only to find it effortlessly. Wait. Hey. Hold on. Damn it. Dan, sitting in the train cabin with a look of disbelief, watched the mechanical arm quickly changing the wheels and the stellar train disappearing from the radar range. He couldn't help but feel anxious. He had finally found a big shot to follow, and now he had suddenly flown away? The mechanical arm, a yellow tier accessory, was very rare. Among all the trains he had seen, only he had one, obtained from a fortuitous encounter map. He had always been proud of it. While others took over 10 minutes to change their wheels, he could do it in just 1 minute without needing slaves to step out and operate it manually. He could just sit in the train cabin and let the mechanical arm handle it. But how the hell did the stellar train just take off like that? 1 second, it was using spider legs to traverse the Kunlun Mountains region like him, and the next second, the spider legs retracted, and the bunny cloud wheels appeared? He didn't even see the mechanical arm extend. What kind of damned accessories supermodel effect was this? 1 minute later, the bunny cloud wheels were finally successfully changed, and the Azure Dragon train took off again. But Dan stared blankly at the empty targeting radar, feeling utterly lost. Where was his big brother? Could someone tell him where his big brother had gone? And the green dragon wasn't a pack monster, it was extremely rare. Back then, he had spent a lot of resources to get intel that a green dragon was in the Kunlun Mountains region. He had searched for several days before finding it. But today, he had watched helplessly as the stellar train did nothing, and a green dragon provocatively flew past, as if begging to be noticed. Pure luck. Just then, Chen Ming's voice came through the train radio. I'm planning to kill this green dragon and return to the Shay Plane to check out that underwater labyrinth. Are you coming with me, or? I'll wait here for you. Hearing Chen Ming's voice, Dan breathed a sigh of relief. At least his big brother wasn't planning to abandon him. The green dragon was faster. But the stellar train was even faster. Doomsday cannon successfully locked on. Ready to fire at any moment. Chen Ming frowned, his thumb resting on the red button atop the control stick, hesitating to press it. In his view, the green dragon kept flapping its wings, occasionally turning around to hover in midair and glance at him. It felt like both a provocation and a plea for mercy? A plea for mercy? No, it didn't seem like that. It was more like it was leading the way. Could it be? Chen Ming thought of the dog-tail grass on the front of his train. According to Dan, although the green dragon wasn't a high-level monster, it had no fixed territory and was extremely elusive. If he had truly been lucky enough to encounter this green dragon, there could only be one explanation. This green dragon was a special passenger. A passenger? Chen Ming narrowed his eyes. After a while, he finally moved his thumb away from the red button, deciding not to fire. Instead, he would follow the green dragon for a while and see if it really was leading the way. He wanted to see where it would take them. But the direction. After flying for a while, it circled back to the Shay Plane. 1 hour later, the green dragon descended from the sky, landing by a lake. This was the exact coordinate Dan had sent him for the underwater labyrinth. Dan. Chen Ming picked up the train radio's walkie-talkie and spoke softly. When you killed that green dragon back then, did it ever stop mid-flight to glance at you, as if it was provoking you, right? Dan's voice quickly came through the walkie-talkie. Yeah, it did. How could I let it get away with that? I closed the distance and let the Doomsday cannon unleash a barrage. Took it out easily. Chen Ming silently ended the conversation with Dan. As expected, this mysterious green dragon was indeed a special passenger, similar to the black market merchant. But unlike the black market merchant, it wasn't invulnerable to attacks. It was more like... Just then, a few lines of text appeared on the control panel. Doomsday fortuitous encounter, Hellgreen Dragon. Its whereabouts are unpredictable. Any train may encounter the Hellgreen Dragon. This is a monster that can revive endlessly. Before its death, it swallowed the deep-sea shield accessory blueprint, making killing the Hellgreen Dragon the only way to obtain the deep-sea shield. It has long been dead. Only a fragmented soul controls its decaying body. Its sole wish is to return to its roots. If you successfully bring it home, you will receive a generous reward. So the dog-tail grass is really that effective? Chen Ming glanced at the words on the control panel and then at the green, fluttering moth. Its eyes unfocused and dazed. That was quietly squatting by the lake, spitting out a blue accessory blueprint. It was called a green dragon. But it looked more like a giant moth from his previous world. Calling it a big fluttering moth wasn't entirely wrong. Soon, Zhang Diamai, piloting her mech, jumped off the train, her giant axe slung over her back. She cautiously approached the green dragon, preparing to retrieve the blue accessory blueprint it had spat out. The powerful magnet could only absorb items dropped by monsters. This blueprint wasn't dropped by the monster but was instead something the monster had spat out. Thus, it couldn't be picked up automatically. Someone had to go down and retrieve it. Everything went smoothly. As Zhang Diamai approached, the green dragon merely took a few steps back, making no threatening moves. The deep-sea shield, a blue-tier blueprint, was retrieved without any issues. Then, the green dragon flapped its wings and landed on the front of the train, as if waiting for something. The next moment, a faint blue energy shield enveloped the entire stellar train. This energy shield could help the train withstand water pressure and keep it waterproof. Though there was no communication between them, and no way to communicate, Chen Ming understood the green dragon's intentions. He immediately crafted the propeller and upgraded it to level 10. Then, with the help of the level 6 auxiliary universal wheels, the stellar train slowly approached the lake and plunged into the water. The propeller, replacing the wheels, began to spin rapidly, propelling the stellar train deeper into the lake. The green dragon remained quietly perched on top of the train, making no extra movements. The lake water was entirely blocked by the energy shield, leaving the green dragon untouched. Train and monster. In this environment, they coexisted quite harmoniously.